Good day, everyone. Welcome to episode 8 of Cosmic Collab. I'm your host, Olivier from Optimate, and today I'm joined by Basile, Voisin, and Alex Tham of INSEAD Angels Asia. Welcome today, Basile and Alex. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks, Olivier. It's a pleasure too.
Yeah, thanks, Olivier. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, guys, for joining us today. So today we're going to talk a little bit about angel investing from the perspective of an angel investor, and we're also going to talk about INSEAD Angels and a group that has been joined with a specific thesis. So first of all, I'm going to just give the opportunity to each of you to maybe introduce yourself and maybe share about your journey as an angel investor. So maybe Alex, you can start with your take and your journey in angel investing.
Thanks, Olivia. So I'm now based in Singapore. I'm a Singaporean, but I've lived like more than 21 years overseas in Europe, US, and other part of Asia. I actually started my career as an entrepreneur. Did my first company when I was in the university, sold it, started another 2 more before I become a VC and later running a private equity and going back now to my roots of running businesses. And at the same time now I'm doing angel investing to support entrepreneur because I was once an entrepreneur.
I think my journey in angel investing is quite shorter than Alex's. So I've started angel investing, I think, around 3 years ago, mostly motivated by the opportunity to meet with interesting people, hear interesting stories, and help wherever I can, either by giving advice or giving a little bit of funding, and of course trying to make a little bit of money along the way, right? So I see angel investing as more of a bundle of, if you want, a movie ticket with a lottery ticket altogether.
Interesting, Basile. So you don't see angel investing as a pure financial, looking at the return and looking at how much I can make out of this deal, because angel investing is risky, right? So it's early stage bets in early companies. So maybe can either of you maybe share about how you actually did your first ticket? Also, in retrospect, would you have done that first ticket in the first angel investment you've done? What you've learned from that, and why? And if it's in the negative, then you might not have done it. What made you continue doing it and continue being committed to the cause?
So okay, my first ticket was actually with INSEAD Angels Asia, which is a club that now we are running with Alex. Maybe we can get back to this in a little while. And when I was I don't want to minimize the importance of making money, right? Of course it's about financial returns, right? I think now if I was telling you that it's only about financial return without being a very active angel investor, which one, increases your chances of actually making money, but two, also would increase diversification, which is super important to reduce the risk that you've talked about. Then if I was telling you I'm here only for the money without having this scale and this professionalism, then it would be a bit of a joke, right? So the first investment I made with the INSEAD Angel Asia team, I think we can say it was a bold investment. Do I regret making it? Financially, yes. And now for the learnings, probably not. Right. I won't be too long, and we can go back to the learnings if you want. I want to leave some time for Alex to also share his views.
Thanks, Basile. My first investment, of course, is in my own company, because in the old days, there's really no terms like angel investing or VC in Singapore, right? If you take back like 36, 37 years ago, so you only have the 3F, right? That you can depend on: friends, families, and fools. And I put most of my money there. That's, of course, is my own investment. My first investment outside was, of course, after that. I kind of look at the business. I like the person. I put my first check, right? Small check, trying to help. But from there and after, I'm a little bit slow learner compared to Basile. I kind of like do 2 or 3 times. I realized that liking the person is one thing, liking the team is another thing. But you have no idea what is the business. It's very difficult to assist, right? So from there, I kind of very focused on, yes, I might like the entrepreneur a lot, I like the team a lot, but if I'm not able to understand the business, not able to contribute, it's very hard. It's really very hard to get involved and to really understand what's going on.
So what type of what I would say advice can you give to make decisions? Let's say you've got 3 pitches, you know these 3 teams, they all look good, they're all sometimes they're part of your former cohort, sometimes they are new exciting businesses, but sometimes, of course, the appeal could be just interesting, or it seems to be trendy topic, or the team, it looks fantastic. You don't know them, but it looks fantastic. So how do you make that decision? You cannot put 10K in every deal, right? You have to at some point make these decisions whether you go or not for the deal.
I can give a go. Again, I learned from my mistake, right? Now I have certain approach for myself, I would say, before I get too excited. It's easy to get excited, right? I mean, I say, wow, this is nice, this is good. Like, you want to put and get involved in everything, right? But I can't have a few things that I for myself, right? Number one, I will never invest if I don't met the entrepreneur face to face. A couple of high profile deals came in that I come across, ChatGPT, SpaceX. I'm asked to syndicate and get involved, right? I mean, it sounds very exciting, but I don't know Elon Musk. And I definitely don't, stand behind ChatGPT personally. So it's hard to kind of write a check to get involved, right? So number one, I never invest if I don't meet the entrepreneur and kind of get connected, right? To see what the dream is. Because again, for me, my intent is to kind of support the entrepreneur, right? That's my bigger mission. When I invest, I would write that off, right? It's not in my balance sheet, it's my P&L. Right?
It's a prudent move because then you have a good surprise, right? If there's a return.
Yeah. So because of that, I number one, I will meet the entrepreneur. Number two, preferably I can meet the rest of the team, right? To get a feel about this business. Number three is I need to feel a passion and know the business. If I'm not passionate about the business, I think it's very hard to get involved. I mean, I not necessarily these days I'm not necessarily become a formal advisor. But from time to time, the entrepreneur would call and say, "Hey, Alex, what do you think?" And I like to be in position to help because I know how hard and how lonely it is to be an entrepreneur. Right? It's a very lonely seat.
So I think we've lost Basile, but so I think we will continue while waiting for him to join back. But so you mentioned, for instance, ChatGPT or other businesses like these are really quite advanced businesses, right? So when your thesis is, what stage do you usually look at as an angel to invest in?
That's an excellent question, right? Because I have been a VC before, and we are very clear on what stage we are going in. So I think as angel, I think Oliver touched on a very good point, right? And that's the reason why I didn't get involved. Though it sounds like a good financial investment, but I didn't get involved because I think the stage is too late. Also, I'm not sure whether we would cover in detail later. I think Basile mentioned about the financial, right? One of the thing that some angel might not be fully aware, I think valuation is important because if you enter too late, the valuation is too high. As an angel, you end up with 0.001%. You're just a small digit on the cap table, right? So I think the valuation and the stage, I would say they come together. And usually they are very much in line, right? The later the value, the stage, whether it's so I would normally get in pre-seed or seed. I think these days the valuation will go quite high when you come to A. So pre-seed seed will be a good entry point. Usually I would also think that too early is also sometimes challenging for angel. All right. So a sweet spot, again, I just say sweet spot, you don't often get the sweet spot. The sweet spot would be when there is a prototype, there's some initial validation, it won't be in the revenue, it won't be a profit positive, but at least it's in some form of revenue traction. And those are usually in the seed and pre-seed round, right? So this is where I like to get involved.
You talk about valuations, and because I've talked to a number of angels also, Optimate, and also when we fundraise, and sometimes you come across angels that don't fully understand the full, I would say, journey of startup goes on. For example, how the value increases, what type of instrument, whether it's a safe note, what does it translate in, what is really your upside, the potential upside, when can you exit? I've got some questions often. Some angel investors coming in, and after a couple of years, they say, "So when am I going to get a return on my investment?" So I think this is, and I'm happy to hear what you think. I think as an angel, that's my opinion is when you do an angel round at a seed or pre-seed stage, you have to be ready to know that you won't see money back before 5, even in worst cases 10 years, right? So this is it's more like almost a long-term investment as opposed to something where you can get a quick return. So I think that's quite important for an angel to understand, right? Unless you somehow you have inside information and it's going to exit soon and you come in quickly and you be part. But these opportunities are quite rare, right? So I think for most of us that are active angels, it's more of, right, there's a high chance of failure in the first 5 years, and also there's a high chance there won't be any returns in the 5 years, even if the startup is successful, right? So I think that's quite, for a lot of investors that are not used to this asset class, it's quite hard to really comprehend, because during that period you don't get any interest, You don't get any dividends. You don't get any returns. You can't. It's not liquid. You can't really sell it that easily. So I think this is what I would highlight to Angel. So Basile, sorry we continued without you, but what discipline do you put in place to decide what rules do you establish to yourself to decide what to choose over what, right? Or is it just gut feeling?
Yeah, no. So I think maybe to frame my answer in the what we're doing with INSEAD Angels Asia, right? Which means that we're part of the same network, the same alumni. So it's strangers, but not completely strangers. And also it's super early stage, right? So there is only that much you can base your decision on. Right? But so I think Alex already touched on this. Is the team is key, right? What's the skill set, the expertise of the team? And I say team because generally you want to go with probably at least 2 co-founders, because one person is quite a big risk. And so how is the team able to fight, to solve problems together? And are these people really hungry? Because we see a ton of bright people, which means that they also have a ton of other opportunities, right? And so it's cool to have a good time with your investors' money, but as an investor, you want your founders to really take it seriously, and if they need to starve for, maybe not completely starve, but right, kind of starve for a couple of months, couple of years until it really takes off, you want them to be committed, right? Mm-hmm. So the team is one, and the second point I like to look at is, is there a problem to solve, right? And what is the problem to solve? How big, how fast you could grow in there. So really the team and the problem. And the product, actually, I don't mention it because it's that early stage that very often the product that will end up being successful can be quite different from the initial product. Right? So this would be the kind of things I keep in mind.
Yeah, I think to come back to INSEAD Angels, it is the case, right? Because INSEAD being a business school, that if they're co-founders, at least they've gone through. So it's not like a 20-year-old, drop off of university with a fantastic idea and a lot of charisma. It's more about at least there is a bit of a litmus test, I would say, in terms of the solid. But that comes with all the challenges that you pointed out, because the opportunity cost of an MBA graduate, particularly in the first few years, and typically they are a little bit older. So you might have a family, you might have a mortgage, you might have other things. So that the temptation, if the business is not picking up necessarily as quickly as it is in the first few years, there might be a temptation to say, okay, right, I could earn 3 times as much just going back into corporate. Why am I bothering with this? So I think, it's quite key, particularly when you assess this early stage. And I do know, Basile, that you asked that question, actually, and actually it's quite a very important question to the founder. So, okay, are you really serious about this, right? So what guarantee do I have that in 2 years you're going to say, I don't have any patience anymore with this, too much work, too much stress, and I'm getting solicited left and right by headhunters for another job. What guarantees do I have that you're going to stick with it? And I think it's quite key to make that assessment. So yes, very relevant. INSEAD Angels, so very early stage, mostly based on the pitch, an idea, a team.
Can I just add to what Basile said? I think that's really a good statement, and we both seen a lot in INSEAD Asia. We have a website, that people can go in and log in if they would like to pitch, and we see through a lot of business plan, and we talk to a lot of entrepreneur, right? So it's not just INSEAD entrepreneur. I think to all entrepreneur, what we would suggest is actually what Basile say, right? Many entrepreneurs came to us with a lot of brilliant idea. Another website they do this, another thing that do that. I think we always ask the 3 questions, right? To kind of help them. Actually, we ask it to help them before they start to pitch. Number 1, what is the problem? Number 2, how big is the problem? And number 3, how are you doing differently? All right. So we often help them to validate that, because while it's good to kind of say, well, I have this idea, right? But if you can't do your own self validation, you know, because those are the questions that any angel would also ask, maybe in a different way. All right.
So maybe I wanted to follow up on one item that you cover, because we're saying that you invest in teams, ideally teams of more than 1, at least 2. But we've learned, I think, in business school, if I remember quite well, I know divorce, even in the startup, is probably the first cause for startup failing, right? Not divorce with the wife of the founder, but between the founders themselves, right? So because there's a fallout, and then if you suddenly are, CTO, a CFO, what can you share in terms of when you assess these founders? Are these hard questions you ask? Because that's never in the pitch deck, right? It's never in the pitch deck. Like we between co-founders, we've talked, and we know we're not going to separate in a couple of years. It's more about, this is my background, and we are all aligned. Of course, we are all aligned when we pitch, right? So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I don't have a secret sauce, sadly. So the way I try to do this is I just want to hear stories, right, about their backgrounds, about how they've been working together, about what they've been disagreeing on, how they solved this. Now the issue is that for stories you have storytelling and you can make up things, right? So I mean, if I, of course, if I could, I would like to observe the founding team and maybe put them in a lot of different setups and see what happens. But you can't afford this, right? So it's trying to do a little bit of discovery on how, I mean, being French and educated in a Cartesian way, right? I absolutely value the ability to have an argument and make sure that everyone is fighting to get their opinions heard. And then, okay, then I can understand what you say. I can take a step towards you. I can drop my views. That's okay. But first, we must fight. So I want people who know how to fight without tensions, but with arguments, right? And maybe I would say the other side of this topic that I like to ask about is what is your support system, right? Because as our founders will be in super stressful, high uncertainty environments, I want to make sure that they're in the best position to fight, and which means that they have family, friends, advisors, whatever. It can be anything, and it's often everything that will support them and allow them to perform in this high stress environment.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I value also the and this is why I feel privileged with my co-founders, because we kind of go into arguments, right? And then it heats up, but immediately after we're like, okay, actually now you make actually a good value point. I disagree with this, but yes, this. Let me think about it. And then we talk it through, right? And we never 100% align on everything, but at least we know where we always bring it up, and we always say, hey, by the way, this is a topic. So I think yes, that's and you do need to have co-founders with whom you are able to have that, because otherwise there's communication breakdown, and then you drift apart. Actually, a little bit like in a marriage or in a relationship, and I think it's very, very similar. So communication is key, and it's important to be able to be on the same wavelength in terms of how you communicate. And I think that is one of my learnings as well in the last 5 years of being an entrepreneur. Alex, thoughts on that topic?
Yeah. So on team, I think we need to look at the life cycle of a company, right? Because that's the life cycle product. So when we invest in different stage, sometimes it requires different leadership and different team, right? And sometimes, unfortunately, you'll find that company from pre-seed all the way to Series D, there could be a change in the CEO, the CTO, and the team dynamic will change, right? Because it requires different team and organization. If we go back to like where angels play, I think I agree. This is the stage of you are building something, right? So which means that there's high uncertainty and there's also a high satisfaction. That the team need to have a kind of resilience, as I think both Basile and Olivier you allude to, right? The high resilience is important, and also when there are issues, how does the team react? Right, I think that's also important. I think the last thing I look at is also leadership. While there's a team, right, in the early days, right, I think the leadership is very key, because you can't have like 20 people having meeting for 3 months before deciding what you should do next. Right, you can't get things out. So I think that form of what Basile was mentioning is something you get to feel, right? The team need to have that discussion, but at the same time, they need to move forward as a team very strongly, right? Lead by the leaders, right? So I think that is the dynamic that you'll find in startup is even more critical than say in a bigger organization, because time is so compressed.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think you hit the nail on, because we are almost a little focused on early stage, but so maybe shifting gears to on your end. How do you typically build relationships with founders? What is your expectation? Once you've signed that check, right, and once the money has come in, because I remember hearing some VC investors complaining that they don't know what's happening in some of their portfolio companies. It's hard to get information sometimes because on the early stage investments. But you, as an angel or as an investor, what are your I would say base expectations of a once you signed the check and the money has come in? Right?
I think first for VC, that's what I advise startup, right? Once you start taking VC money, I think you need to recognize that those are institutional money, so you need to have a little bit more professional process of updating, right? Whether it's weekly or monthly report, you need to do that, because it's a different setup, right? But with angel, obviously, I think it goes among different angel. At least I see among different angel and among different startup, right? Some angel bring along some very key skill set that the startup really value, and and that will have a more frequent interaction. Others are more strategic and advisory, like what I'm trying to do. I try to leave them, the stuff to run. But what I think is it works both ways, right? As much as Angel is saying that, well, we need to be updated, I think trust has to be earned between the angel and the startup. It has to be earned on both ways, right? If you invest the money and you kind of feel that I need to be updated, and I know many angel does that, right? Even in my old days when I start, when we don't call them angel, right? That's the 3F, if I say, right? People, like Alex, they'll call me, Alex, what's happening? What's happening? Like, I like to get involved. Sometimes a bit more tactical, sometimes a bit more strategic. So I kind of learn from my own lesson, because once we get too involved, we're actually tearing the startup apart.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't need it. If they need it, then you're being helpful, right? If they ask for your help.
I agree with Alex. It's very much trust-based. And I think, it's a little bit like when you're leading a team, right? Best case is everything goes well. You don't hear about everything. You just learn one day that, oh, wow, we multiplied the annual revenue by whatever, and we found a lead for our next raise at a valuation that is 20 times the last round. So, right, this is the ideal thing, right? But where I'm trying to get at is that the best case is when the founder know when to reach out, right? Because you don't want to hear bad news late, right? Especially not late. And you don't want to hear bad news and realize that, oh, if you had reached out earlier, we may have found a solution together. So I think, as Alex said, the key is to build the trust in order to make sure that you receive the right information on time, right? So probably this means that a bit more involvement at the beginning, building the relationship. And this is even pre-check, right? During the due diligence, or however we can call this, at such an early stage. And then, when you find the right way to operate and communicate, you can relax a little bit. And based on the trust you have built, you know that if you don't hear anything for a couple of months, it doesn't mean that anything suspicious is going. It just means that your founders are actually working, which is what you want them to do.
Yeah, I mean, Basile is spot on, right? I mean, I'm sometimes a little bit guilty of this. Not because the situation is bad. I want to reassure everybody, but sometimes there's a thing that we need to work on, and we need to find some input on something. And then because we're working, and a little bit later, for some reason, I have coffee with a friend and say, by the way, and I'm like, why didn't I think about reaching out to you? I just did not know that I should have reached out, because obviously we, and of course in a startup environment where also somewhat involved in sales, you meet so many people, you talk to so many people, and it's hard to keep track, honestly, sometimes of who could help on which topic and so on and so forth. So it has happened to me a couple of times in the last 2 years where I'm like, actually, I could have saved maybe a little bit of time if I had just had that input by that person a little earlier. But so I think that's probably the case. And yeah, it's even worse when, of course, the startup is not doing well, and of course there could have been something to be salvaged or done, and it's missed opportunity, right? In that sense. So I think, yes, for all the startup founders out there, do remember to leverage your network as a whole, and of course your angel investors first and foremost.
Or like other startup founder, right? What you say is very key. What founders reaching out is a sign of strength and not a sign of weakness. Right? That means they know that is when they need to reach out. So I see that as a strong sign of strength.
Startup funding has been going down in the funding winter. It's been harder and harder. You've probably heard a lot of startup founders struggling to close rounds, which was probably not the case, 2 or 3 years before, right? When it was relatively easy within a month being able to get a term sheet just on the basis of a pitch deck. So the role of angels actually is even more important, we feel now, than it was in the past, because you do need to have more early stage just bets on teams, as opposed to getting an early stage VC who will do a lot more due diligence nowadays. So maybe could you touch a little bit on your thoughts on this and how things are evolving?
Basile and I speak a lot about INSEAD Angel network, and we are both very passionate about supporting entrepreneurs, about supporting the angel network. Both in INSEAD and also the broader ecosystem, right? Because I think it's a whole ecosystem that need to be done. And of course, we see INSEAD Angel as a small part to the whole effort. I think what is important, Olivier, is exactly what you're trying to do now, right? I think first, education is important. I think, like you mentioned, angel get burned, or even startup have very bad experience with some angel, right? I've seen before a deal that some startup came to me, is like some very high profile angel. They want 60% of the company, right? They were like, okay. there's some crazy deals that's going around like this, right?
Is that angel investment? Sorry to interrupt, but that's not it.
That's not. But there's some deals that there are some angel with very strong network that feel that they want a bigger piece of the investment, right? Which I strongly don't encourage for angel investing, because you want the startup founder and team to have enough incentive to move forward. I think first of all, to get involved, I think so. That's why when we sort of take the lead, because INSEAD Angel Asia has been around for 6 to 8 years, and we kind of help out and came in the committee and for 3-4 years ago. One of our goal was to build an education platform, right? Because that more people need to be aware, both from both sides, right? Both angel as well as startup, right? So I think we are very focused on that. And in that end, we are also very focused in getting the voice out, not just our voice, but getting good experience people, people like yourself who've seen a lot, to kind of share and let people be more aware, right? That's one. I think two is also we need to make the whole ecosystem more seamless, right? Because I think in the US, angel investing, there's more structure that make angel investing easier, and also the counterparty risks are being addressed, right? How do you address that? Because it's very small ticket size, you need to make sure it's efficient, right? So I think more can be done there. And of course, your platform is one of those that have to facilitate that. We should be very glad to see that. All right. I think the third thing is also we like to see more startup, right? Because once you have more startup, then you kind of would attract more deal flow, and we will then reach out to more people. We have many first timers, right? People who never write a single check, but who are very curious on it. All right. But what we try to encourage, and that's why sometime before the startup come to our event to pitch, Basile and I will talk to them and maybe coach and mentor them a little bit, because many maybe their first time pitching, right? Since it's the angel deal, it's their first pitching, could be to a big forum, right? So I think that's the thing that we try to do, right, within the club, and we hope to see more, and we see more angel community coming up in Singapore, which is great.
Yeah, completely in line with this. Like education, community, and enablement. And on this last point, it's absolutely fantastic to have you guys optimate around. Right? Yeah. For founders, for angels, for syndicates, because as Alex was saying, right, it allows to try small, and it allows to try with friends and learn from friends. So that's absolutely great.
So I think as much as it's also important that startup understand what is angel investing, right? What are the angel they need? I very often I will share it with the startup, right, so that they kind of have an idea who you want to be with you. The other thing that I want to point out, I think earlier on you touched on how does angel and startup interact, right? Very often, unlike a VC, which I say that sometimes you need a lot of formal report because VC are institutional money. I think what some startup I see did nicely is that they invite their angel, right, when they're major milestone, kind of celebrate together. I think those are what excite angel. And I also share with startup that is important, right? Because sometimes the angel, maybe your first check, could be also your second check and your third check, right? So you never really know. So it's always important that as it goes along, maybe the angel can follow through, right? So it's good to engage the angel and not treat them as a transaction, but a relationship, right? They can build over time.
Absolutely. I think I've just taken a note of this. Celebrate your milestones with your angels, and we shall do that as well once we've reached the milestones we want. So it's a good suggestion. Because you involve, right? So we're all part of it together, and this is what is essentially an angel. Yeah. I think once as well, beyond just putting the money in. So how do you see things evolving? Are we going to have more angels going forward? Are people going to be more active? Do you feel we're going to see a rebound and coming back to? I know it's always, you probably get this question very often, but I have to ask it, right? So
maybe I give a go on it. I think angel investing has always been there, right? Different time it's called different terminology, right? In the old day, we as I mentioned, we call it the 3F, right? That's a friend, family, and fools, right? That's the people that can give money. So I think angel investing will always be there, whether it's more or less. It's hard to gauge, right? But one direction you can see is that, first of all, a lot of the pension fund are going into the big VC fund. So the VC fund are getting bigger and bigger, right? That means they're doing bigger and bigger deal, right? They need to write bigger and bigger check. So where does that leave for the rest, right? So you have other smaller VC fund, that's true. But I think angel fit into a nice ecosystem, right? What I think, and I think Singapore and in that regard is doing a good thing, is kind of creating clarity on the legal framework, right? And also creating structure. It's very easy to incorporate company here. It's very easy to say, for example, have a platform like Optimate like yourself that allow people to do small ticket, right? So I think that facilitates a lot on angel investing as a whole. But I think there's also a competition of asset class, right? So you have the startup and you also have other asset class, right? And I think what will be interesting, I'm quite involved in crypto. What will be interesting is how can the tokenization, trend be able to facilitate this angel investing even more, make it even more seamless, lower cost, right? I think once you have that, we already seen that in real estate, right? People coming together to say build a villa in Bali, right? Putting a $1,000 check and you own a piece of the villa, right? So and with good clear counterparty risk all aligned. So I think that might be a good, interesting trend, and might even encourage more angel to kind of look at it. Yeah, I can write a small check, right? Not necessarily like 100,000 check, right? Maybe I can write a smaller check. So I think that could change. At the moment, it's hard to say, but I do think that there is alternative investment that's in competition, right? And some people might feel that the stock market is still quite good return, right?
Yeah, I think I'm happy that you brought this, and then you touched on a couple of points which I think are on top of my head as well. So yes, competing with other asset class, right? So you're competing with real estate that's picking up, has been constantly picking up in Asia. You're competing with the stock market. Of course, now it might, there's uncertainty about how this is going to happen. It could go in the next few years, but still, historically, VC is so uncertain compared to other asset classes. So you're competing with this. I think VC is a little bit the way we've talked about it so far in this podcast is we almost see it as most as impact, right? Because you invest with an idea that you also want to help with the. So thank you very much. I think this has been very engaging. I think we've talked way more than we should have. So
maybe as a concluding comment,
yes,
just following what Basile has said, right? I think everything we share today is just our own personal experience, right? It's just about what we do. We're not encouraging anyone to follow any of what we're doing. So just let the audience know. We're just sharing our own personal experience.
Absolutely. And I mean, of course, we will. Well, Basile, Alex, it was a pleasure. Again, thank you very much for taking time off your very busy schedules to join us on this episode. And I hope to see you very soon for the next INSEAD Angels event.
Yeah, let's do that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Olivier, and thank you for everything that
Thank you. Bye.